Are you ready to dive into a world where powerful beings made choices that shook the heavens? Ever wondered which mighty goddess told two of the biggest gods on the block, thanks, but no thanks, when they wanted her hand? Or how a divine huntress dealt with someone who dared to peek while she was taking a bath? Picture this, a goddess so fierce. She was literally born from her father's head, fully armed, and ready to declare her independence from romance forever. And what happens when a god and goddess just cannot agree on whether to live by the crashing waves or in the silent, snowy mountains? Could it be that a goddess ancient beyond imagining actually wove the entire world into existence all by herself? No partner needed? Get ready, because these stories are wild. Number 5. Neith, the weaver of worlds, who needed no one. Imagine a time before time, a vast, dark, watery emptiness. Out of this primordial soup, a figure emerges, a goddess of immense power and ancient wisdom. This is Neith, one of Egypt's oldest deities, and her story is not just about choosing singledom. It is about being so complete, so self-sufficient, that the very idea of needing a partner seems almost beside the point. She was not just a goddess. In some tales, she was the creator, the one who brought forth life from nothingness, all on her own. Neith was often depicted with symbols of war and hunting, a shield, crossed arrows, a bow. She was a fierce protector, a warrior goddess, who could stand her ground against any threat. But she was also a goddess of wisdom, of weaving, and of the waters. Think about weaving for a moment. It is a creative act, taking threads and interlacing them to form something new, something whole. Many ancient Egyptians believed Neith wove the entire world into existence on her cosmic looms, strand by strand, creating the sky, the earth, the stars, and all living things. She did not need a divine husband to help her. Her own creative power was enough. This act of solitary creation is a powerful statement. It suggests an inherent completeness, a universe contained within herself. In some of the earliest myths, Neith was seen as androgynous, possessing both male and female aspects, or as a being who could create parthenogenetically, meaning she could bring forth offspring without a mate. She was sometimes called the Great Cow, who gave birth to Ra, the sun god, imagining her as a nurturing, life-giving force that needed no bull to conceive. She was also referred to as Neith the Great, Mother of the gods, who was, who is, and who will be. This title speaks to her eternal nature, her presence at the very beginning of everything. Her main cult center was at Sais, in the Nile Delta, where she was worshipped for thousands of years. Priests and priestesses attended to her temples, honoring her as a source of life and a guardian. The Greeks, when they encountered Egyptian culture, often identified Neith with their own goddess Athena, another powerful virgin goddess of wisdom and warfare. This shows how her independent nature resonated across cultures. One of the most famous things associated with Neith's temple at Sais was an inscription recorded by later writers like Plutarch. It was said to declare, "I am all that has been, that is, and that will be. No mortal has yet been able to lift the veil that covers me." This enigmatic statement adds to her mystique, speaks of her all-encompassing nature, her mystery, and her self-contained power. She is the ultimate source, beyond full comprehension, and certainly not defined by any relationship other than her relationship to the cosmos she may have birthed. While other gods and goddesses in the Egyptian pantheon had complex family trees, consorts, and dramatic love affairs, Neith often stood apart. Her ancientness set her above many of the later squabbles and pairings. Her choice, if you can call it that, was to be the origin, the primal force. When you are the one weaving the fabric of reality, who else could possibly be your equal? Who else could you need? Her singledom was not a rejection of others, but an affirmation of her own absolute sufficiency. She was the ultimate independent creator, a goddess who was whole and complete from the very beginning, needing no one to help her shape existence or define her being. Her story is a powerful reminder that in some ancient beliefs, ultimate power and creation could spring from a single, unpartnered, divine feminine force. She simply was, and from her, everything else came to be. This wasn't about avoiding romance. It was about being the source from which even the concept of such things might eventually flow. Long after her own primary act of solitary creation, she was the weaver, and the pattern she wove was the universe itself, a masterpiece created by one. Number 4. Skadi, the frost giantess who chose icy peaks over marital compromise. Get ready for a tale from the snowy, windswept lands of Norse mythology, where gods and giants clashed, and sometimes, just sometimes, they tried to make peace through marriage. But what happens when a fiercely independent mountain goddess tries to settle down with a god of the sunny shores? Meet Skadi, a Jotun, or giantess, who valued her icy wolf-howling homeland more than any relationship that asked her to leave it. Skadi's story begins with a vendetta. Her father, Diazi, a powerful giant, was killed by the Aesir gods after he kidnapped the goddess Idun and her youth-giving apples. Furious and armed for battle, Skadi stormed Asgard, the realm of the gods, demanding compensation for her father's death. The gods, perhaps impressed by her audacity, or simply wanting to avoid an all-out war with the giants, offered her a deal. First, Odin, the Allfather, took Thiazi's eyes and threw them into the sky, where they became 2 shining stars. Second, they had to make her laugh, something she thought impossible given her grief and rage. The trickster god Loki managed this by tying one end of a rope to a goat's beard and the other to his own well-sensitive parts. Their subsequent tug of war was so ridiculous that Skadi finally cracked a smile. The final part of her compensation was a husband from among the Aesir. But there was a catch. She had to choose him by looking only at their feet. She hoped to pick Balder, the most beautiful of the gods, known for his radiant fairness. She saw a pair of exceptionally clean and well-formed feet and declared, "These I choose. There can be little that is ugly about Balder." But when the screen was lifted, she found she had chosen Njord, the god of the sea wind and fishing, whose feet were constantly washed clean by the ocean waves. Balder's feet, it turned out, were less remarkable. So Skadi, the huntress of the frozen peaks, found herself married to Njord, the gentle god of the warm, fertile coast. You can probably guess this was not a match made in Valhalla. They tried to make it work, agreeing to spend 9 nights in Skadi's mountain stronghold, Thrymheimer, and then 9 nights in Njord's seaside home, Noatun. Njord hated the mountains. He complained, "Loathsome to me are the mountains. I was not long there, only 9 nights. The howling of the wolves sounded ugly to me after the song of the swans." He missed the cry of the seabirds, the smell of salt, and the gentle lapping of waves. Skadi, in turn, detested the coast. She lamented, "Sleep I could not on the seabeds, for the screeching of the bird that gull wakes me when from the wide sea he comes each morning." She missed the silence of the snow-covered forests, the thrill of the hunt on skis, the sharp, clean air of her icy domain. The constant noise of the seabirds and the dampness of Noatun were unbearable for her. It was clear their lifestyles were completely incompatible. Neither was willing to give up their preferred home for the other. Skadi was a goddess of winter, skiing, bow hunting, and mountains. Her very essence was tied to the wild, untamed, frozen landscapes. Njord was a god of summer, the sea, prosperity, and calm waters. His being was linked to the bountiful ocean and the bustling shore. They were a geographical and temperamental mismatch. So, they made a mutual decision. They separated. Skadi returned to Thrymheimer, her father's hall high in the mountains, where she strapped on her skis, took up her bow, and continued to hunt wild beasts, living the life she loved. She became known as the ski god, or ski lady, a powerful and solitary figure traversing the frozen wilderness. Skadi's story is fascinating because it is not about a lifelong vow of virginity from the start. It is about a goddess who tried marriage, found it wanting because it clashed with her fundamental nature and passions, and then chose to live independently, true to herself. She did not pine for Njord or seek another husband among the gods. She embraced her singledom, her wildness, and her icy kingdom. Her independence was hard-won and fiercely guarded. She showed that even in a world of powerful gods and binding oaths, personal happiness and staying true to one's own spirit could mean choosing to walk, or rather ski, a solitary path. Her home was the whistling wind and the crunch of snow underfoot, not a shared hall where she felt out of place. She chose the call of the wild over the call of a husband, and in doing so became an enduring symbol of untamed independence and self-reliance in the harsh but beautiful northern lands. Number 3. Hestia, the goddess who said nope to the big shots for a quiet life by the fire. Imagine the bustling, drama-filled world of the Greek gods on Mount Olympus. Zeus is chasing someone, Hera is plotting revenge, Ares is starting a fight, and Aphrodite is stirring up romantic chaos. But amidst all this, there was one goddess who just wanted a bit of peace and quiet, a warm fire, and no romantic entanglements whatsoever. Meet Hestia, the Greek goddess of the hearth, home, family, and the sacred fire. Her story is one of quiet strength and a determined choice for a single respected life. Hestia was one of the 12 Olympians, and a very important one at that. She was the firstborn child of the Titans, Cronus and Rhea. This made her the elder sister of some very big names: Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon, and Zeus. After Cronus swallowed his children and Zeus later forced him to regurgitate them, Hestia was the last to be brought forth, making her symbolically both the eldest and the youngest. Now being a prominent goddess and known for her gentle and virtuous nature, Hestia naturally attracted some high-profile suitors. Two of the most powerful gods in the pantheon, Apollo, the dazzling god of music, prophecy, and light, and Poseidon, the mighty ruler of the seas, both sought her hand in marriage. Think about that. These were not minor deities. They were heavy hitters. Many goddesses would have been thrilled, perhaps even started a divine bidding war. But Hestia was not interested, not even a little bit. She had no desire for marriage, for the power plays, or for the inevitable drama that seemed to follow Olympian couples. So, what did she do? She firmly rejected both Apollo and Poseidon. To make her intentions absolutely clear, and to avoid any future unwanted advances, Hestia went to Zeus, her brother, and the king of the gods. She placed her hand on his head, a very solemn gesture, and swore an oath that she would remain a virgin forever, dedicating herself to her sacred duties. Zeus, respecting her conviction, and perhaps relieved to avoid the conflict that would surely arise from her choosing one suitor over the other, or neither without such an oath, granted her wish. In recognition of her steadfastness and as compensation for foregoing marriage, Zeus decreed that Hestia would receive a special place of honor. She was to be venerated in every mortal home and in all the temples of the gods. She was to receive the first part of every sacrifice, because the hearth was central to both domestic life and public worship. The fire of the hearth was essential for cooking, warmth, and as a gathering place for the family. In a broader sense, the public hearth in a city's main hall, the Prytaneum, represented the community's heart and soul, and its fire was kept perpetually burning in Hestia's honor. Hestia, therefore, chose a path of dedicated service and quiet influence over romantic partnership. She became the embodiment of stability, domestic peace, and sacred duty. Unlike many other Olympians who were constantly involved in adventures, quarrels, and affairs, Hestia rarely left Mount Olympus and was seldom depicted in the more scandalous myths. She was a steady, serene presence. Her singledom allowed her to be impartial, to belong to everyone and no one specific. She was the divine spinster aunt of the gods, if you will, but one who held immense, quiet power and universal respect. There is one rather undignified myth involving her, though it only serves to reinforce her chosen chastity. During a rustic feast attended by the gods, Priapus, a minor god of fertility, often depicted with an enormous phallus, tried to sneak up on Hestia while she slept, intending to assault her. Just as he was about to pounce, a donkey brayed loudly, waking Hestia and the other gods. Priapus was caught and shamed. This event, while unpleasant, highlights the protective aura around Hestia's virginity. Even in her sleep, her purity was preserved. Her choice of singledom was not about being antisocial or reclusive in a negative way. It was about dedicating herself to a different kind of connection, the connection of family around a hearth, the connection of a community around its sacred flame. By remaining unmarried and childless, she became the universal mother and sister figure, the guardian of all homes. She did not need a divine husband or children of her own, because every home was her domain, and every family in a way was hers to watch over. Her fire was a symbol of continuity, welcome, and sanctuary. Hestia's story shows that choosing singledom could be a path to profound respect, unique power, and a special kind of universal connection even on drama-filled Mount Olympus. She proved that saying no to powerful suitors could lead to a unique and honored position, defined entirely on her own terms. Number 2. Athena, the brainy goddess, born ready to be single. Imagine a goddess so formidable, so wise, and so utterly self-possessed that she literally sprang into existence fully grown, armed, and with a battle cry that shook the heavens. That's Athena. For you, the Greek goddess of wisdom, strategic warfare, crafts, and heroic endeavor. She was not just okay with being single. It was an integral part of her identity from the moment of her extraordinary birth. Athena's origin story is one of the wildest in Greek mythology. Her father was Zeus, king of the gods, and her mother was Metis, a titaness known for her supreme wisdom. There was a prophecy that Metis would first bear a daughter and then a son who would overthrow Zeus, just as Zeus had overthrown his own father, Cronus. To prevent this, Zeus did what any sensible, all-powerful god would do. He tricked Metis into turning herself into a fly and then swallowed her whole. Problem solved. Right, well, not quite. Metis was already pregnant with Athena. Inside Zeus, she began to prepare her daughter for the world, forging armor and weapons for her. Soon, Zeus was struck by a splitting headache, so unbearable that he roared in agony. He called upon Hephaestus, the smith god, to cleave open his head with an axe. Hephaestus obliged, and from Zeus's skull leaped forth Athena, not as a baby, but as a full-grown woman, clad in shining armor, brandishing a spear, and letting out a mighty war cry. The earth trembled, the heavens revered, and the gods were awestruck. This dramatic entrance set the stage for Athena's entire existence. She was her father's daughter, born of his mind, embodying wisdom and martial prowess, and entirely independent from the start. No childhood, no awkward teenage phase, just pure, unadulterated, awesome. From this moment on, Athena was known as Pallas Athena, a virgin goddess who never took a husband or lover. Her singledom was not a choice made after rejecting suitors, like Hestia, nor was it a fierce defense against unwanted advances, like Artemis. It was simply her state of being. She was complete in herself. Her primary relationships were not romantic, but rather based on mentorship, alliance, and intellectual connection. She became Zeus's favorite child, his trusted advisor, often depicted by his side. Her wisdom was not just academic. It was practical, tactical. She was the goddess of strategy in war, contrasting with her half-brother Ares, who represented the brutal, chaotic frenzy of battle. Athena was about smart fighting, disciplined courage, and victorious outcomes achieved through intelligence. This made her a natural patron of heroes. She guided Perseus in his quest to slay Medusa, providing him with a polished shield to see the Gorgon's reflection. She was a constant companion and protector to Odysseus during his long, arduous journey home from Troy, admiring his cunning and resilience. She aided Heracles in his labors, offering strategic advice and divine assistance. With all these heroes, her relationship was strictly platonic, that of a divine mentor and ally. There was no hint of romance. Her focus was on their success and the triumph of heroic virtue. One of the most telling stories about Athena's commitment to her virginity involves Hephaestus, the smith god who had helped birth her. Perhaps fueled by Aphrodite's mischievous influence or his own desire, Hephaestus attempted to force himself upon Athena. But Athena was no damsel in distress, a formidable warrior in her own right. She fought him off fiercely. During the struggle, Hephaestus's seed fell upon her thigh. Disgusted, Athena wiped it off with a piece of wool and threw it to the earth. From this union of Hephaestus's seed and Gaia the earth, a child was born, Erichthonius, who would later become a legendary king of Athens. Athena, though not his biological mother in the traditional sense, adopted Erichthonius, placed him in a sacred chest, and arranged for his upbringing. This incident powerfully recurs her virgin status. She remained physically untouched, yet she could still be a nurturing, protective figure. Her patronage of Athens, the city that bears her name, is another key aspect of her legend. She competed with Poseidon for the honor of being the city's patron deity. Poseidon struck the Acropolis with his trident, and a saltwater spring, or in some versions, a horse, appeared. Athena, in contrast, touched the ground with her spear, and an olive tree sprouted, a symbol of peace, prosperity, and sustenance. The Athenians, or their king Cecrops, wisely chose Athena's gift, and the city flourished under her guidance. This victory was one of intellect and practical benefit over brute power. Athena was also a goddess of crafts, particularly weaving and pottery. She was said to have invented the loom, the plow, and the chariot. Her skill in weaving was legendary, though she did not tolerate challenges to her supremacy, as the unfortunate mortal Arachne discovered when she was turned into a spider for boasting she was a better weaver than the goddess. Athena's singledom was deeply intertwined with her power and her domains. As a virgin goddess, she was not bound by loyalty to any male consort. Her wisdom was her own, her strategies were her own, and her strength was her own. She represented a different kind of feminine power, intellectual, martial, independent, and self-sufficient. She did not need a partner to be whole or influential. She was born whole, and her influence was immense. Her story tells us that being single can be a source of incredible focus, autonomy, and a unique kind of authority, especially when you have a world of heroes to guide and cities to protect. Number 1. Artemis, the archer queen, who made singledom a fierce art form. Hold onto your hunting bows, because we are venturing into the wild forests and moonlit mountains with Artemis, the Greek goddess of the hunt, the wilderness, wild animals, the moon, and childbirth. If there was ever a goddess who not only chose singledom, but defended it with arrows and an iron will, it was Artemis. She was the ultimate independent woman of the ancient world, and woe betide anyone who disrespected her choice or her privacy. Artemis was the twin sister of Apollo, born to Zeus and the Titaness Leto. Their birth was fraught with peril, as Hera, Zeus's jealous wife, had forbidden any land under the sun to give Leto shelter. Finally, the floating island of Delos, or sometimes Ortygia, offered sanctuary. Artemis was born first, and then, incredibly, as a newborn, she helped her mother deliver her twin brother, Apollo. From her very first moments, she was associated with strength, protection, and the ability to endure hardship. As a young girl, perhaps around the age of 3, Artemis climbed onto her father Zeus's knee and asked him for several gifts. She did not ask for dolls or pretty dresses. Instead, she asked for eternal virginity and to never be forced into marriage. She asked for a bow and arrows like her brother Apollo's, a knee-length tunic so she could run freely, 60 young Oceanid nymphs and 20 Omnicid nymphs as her companions and handmaidens, all the mountains in the world as her domain, and one city to honor her, though she intended to spend most of her time in the wilderness. Zeus, charmed by his fierce little daughter, granted all her wishes. And so Artemis became the eternal maiden, the wild huntress roaming the forests with her band of loyal, equally chaste nymphs. She was a formidable archer, her arrows swift and sure, capable of bringing down any beast, or, if angered, any mortal. She was the protector of young girls before marriage, and, paradoxically, also a goddess of childbirth, perhaps because she had assisted in her own brother's birth, or because she could bring a swift, painless death to women in labor with her arrows if they were suffering. Many myths surrounding Artemis highlight her fierce protection of her virginity and her intolerance for any perceived threat to it or to her companions. One of the most famous and cautionary tales is that of Actaeon, a young hunter. One hot day, Actaeon was out hunting with his dogs. He stumbled upon a secluded grove where Artemis and her nymphs were bathing in a spring, having laid aside their garments. He froze, captivated by the sight of the naked goddess. Artemis, furious at being spied upon and her modesty violated, splashed him with water. As the droplets touched him, antlers sprouted from his head, his neck grew long, his hands and feet turned into hooves, and his skin became dappled fur. He had been transformed into a stag. Terrified, Actaeon fled. But his own hunting dogs, no longer recognizing their master, caught his scent. They chased him down and tore him to pieces. It was a brutal punishment, but it sent a clear message. Artemis's privacy and her chosen state of purity were not to be trifled with. Her reaction was swift and absolute, a stark warning against any male gaze that sought to objectify or possess her. Another tragic story involves one of her favorite companions, Callisto. Zeus, ever the philanderer, desired Callisto, but knew she was sworn to chastity. So, he disguised himself as Artemis and tricked Callisto, seducing or forcing himself upon her. When Callisto's pregnancy became apparent, usually discovered when Artemis saw her bathing, the goddess was enraged. In some versions, Artemis herself, feeling betrayed by the breaking of the vow, even if Callisto was a victim, transformed Callisto into a bear and shot her with an arrow. In other versions, a jealous Hera transformed Callisto, and Zeus later placed her in the stars as the constellation Ursa Major, the Great Bear, to save her from Artemis's or Hera's wrath. Either way, the story burks the immense importance Artemis placed on chastity within her circle. Even the great hunter Orion, sometimes described as a companion and hunting partner of Artemis, met a tragic end that in some versions was at her hands. In one telling, Orion boasted he would kill every animal on Earth. Gaia, the Earth goddess, sent a giant scorpion to sting him, and Artemis, mourning him, asked Zeus to place him among the stars. In another more common version, relevant to her singledom, Orion either tried to force himself upon Artemis or one of her attendants, Opus. Enraged, Artemis shot him with her arrows. A variation claims her brother Apollo, jealous of her friendship with Orion, or fearing she might break her vow, tricked her. He pointed to a dark object far out at sea, Orion swimming, and dared her to hit it with an arrow. Being the skilled archer she was, she hit it, only to discover too late that she had killed Orion. In this version, her grief was immense, but it still stemmed from a situation entangled with her fiercely guarded independence and purity. Artemis was not simply anti-male, she was pro-independence. She valued her freedom, her wild domain, and her band of female companions above all else. Her singledom was a source of her power and her identity. She was untamed, like the wilderness she roamed. She represented a powerful feminine archetype, the woman who is self-sufficient, who finds fulfillment in her own pursuits and in the company of her chosen sisters, who defines her own boundaries and defends them fiercely. Her arrows were not just for hunting animals, they were for protecting her autonomy. Artemis's choice was a resounding declaration that a goddess, and by extension a woman, could be complete, powerful, and revered without a male partner, finding her strength in her own wild, untamable spirit.